beginning of East Texas.
East Texas.
Where you see the pine trees. You know, when I first came here, it was the first time I ever went on a college campus. I came here to cheerleading camp.
No kidding.
How about that? I was the worst one on the whole squad.
On high school, right?
My name is Kelly Siegler. I was a prosecutor in Harris County, Texas for most of my career. I tried over 60 murder cases, and all of those defendants were convicted. I've spent the last few years traveling all across the country, working with local law enforcement on their old unsolved murder cases. So it's Harris County, Montgomery County, Walker County.
Walker's where we're basically working on
Yeah,
the case.
Walker County is the prison capital of Texas. I'm thrilled to be back and looking into a case that I remember hearing about when I worked at the Harris County DA's office. The 1991 murder of Mary Jane LaFleur, a 35-year-old wife, mother of 2 young boys, and an employee of TDCJ, the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. The people that work in Texas law enforcement are a very close family, and that's what makes this case so important to me.
You know, this is a tough case.
And this one was huge. It was all over TDCJ, Crime Stoppers, and local news up here. We brought in Steve Spingola. He is a key member of this team, and he is not afraid of a tough case. The question is going to be trying to find out who was really the last person to see her alive.
Mary was last seen alive at a local mall where her husband reported seeing her drive off with a mysterious man. 18 months later, her skeletal remains were found in a nearby woods. The mystery man quickly became a suspect, but so did the husband, Larry, who also worked at the Texas Department of Criminal Justice.
He's the guy that decides, based on interviewing convicts, where to place him in the whole state of Texas. And he's respected. No one wants to think that one of our own could do something like that.
But not only is Larry a problem, we've got sex offenders, we've got people who have committed violent crimes, we've got people that would rat on their own mother for a day in Disneyland here.
One of the suspects in this case is a violent sex offender. I spent my career interrogating some of the worst criminals in this country, including Jeffrey Dahmer. So that's where I want to focus my attention this week.
This is the kind of case that makes you crazy. You read about those little boys growing up without their mom, how it's affected their lives drastically. One of the key reasons this case went cold was because there was no murder weapon, there were no fingerprints, there was no physical evidence. If this case is going to be solved, it's going to have to be with circumstantial evidence, which is not easy. But as a former prosecutor, those are the kind of cases I dealt with every day.
For me, you know, she's a cop. Call her a prison guard, a corrections officer. She's got that DNA in her. And this should be solved.
It has been 16 years and still no answer.
Police consider her killing a cold case.
Years later, the case is still unsolved.
I've chosen cold cases from across the country and teamed up with the best detectives to solve them. We're more determined than ever to bring justice to these victims. Hello, Chief.
Hello.
Hey, Ken.
Good morning.
This is Steve Spingola.
Good morning,
Hey,
Kelly.
Ken.
Kevin Munster, nice to meet you, sir.
This case to y'all is...
It's extremely important, and I was here at the time. I remember it well. Thank y'all for taking the time to do this.
Oh, you're welcome. You got a place for us to work, Ken?
Yeah, let's go to the
Yeah.
boardroom.
The first thing we do when we hit town is meet with local law enforcement and let them give us a crash course on all the details of the case.
Yeah, come on in.
Thank you.
Hi, Scott Mitchell.
Kelly, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too.
We look at every case with a fresh set of eyes and start the investigation like it's day one. Hey, Greg.
Hey, good seeing you. You too.
I've asked Detective Greg Pinkins to help us out on this case, too. Greg has spent his entire career working alongside the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. Because we're going to be talking to a lot of witnesses in that world, Greg is perfect because he knows it inside and out. Let's start by putting Mary LaFleur's picture up. And she grew up where?
In Greenville, Mississippi.
Did school bring her to Huntsville?
She followed Larry in the late 70s.
Okay.
Everybody's always talking about her smile. Mary Jane LaFleur was a wonderful person, and all of her friends have said that she's very caring, very compassionate, very considerate, life of the party. And they truly, to this day, still miss her. And hearing that just gives you energy to find out what really happened to Mary, and the person responsible will be brought to justice.
Y'all start talking about the case?
Yeah. Huntsville is a smaller community, and it's driven by TDCJ, the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. That's the major workforce here. Mary Jane LaFleur was a sociologist at TDCJ. She was actually a supervisor And her husband, Larry LaFleur, is also an employee at the TDC unit. On July 19th of 1991, the kids, Marcus, who is 12, and Brandon, who was 8 years old at the time, called Mom, and Mary said, I need to go by the mall. Larry gets home, and he's surprised that his wife has not showed up. He goes, look, I'm going to go check to see if she had any car trouble. He gets to the mall, finds her vehicle, so he cranks the car up, makes sure that there's no problems with the car. He leaves the vehicle there. On his way home, he sees a vehicle, a male, which he couldn't describe, and he sees his wife in the passenger seat. Well, he gets chased for about a mile. He can't catch the vehicle, and then he drives back to their residence. In his mind, he thinks his wife is being unfaithful to him.
Detectives thought that Larry's story from that night sounded odd, and so was the fact that it took him 2 days before he contacted the police.
A year after Mary went missing, there is a gentleman walking around off of a logging trail. He sees a skull, he sees some other bones, he sees jewelry. And then through dental records, the sheriff's department were able to identify it as Mary Jane LaFleur. We sent some stuff off the lab, wasn't able to really recover anything. We didn't have really any leads, and it's been cold since. It's plagued this community for the last 25 years, so we're very grateful for y'all coming in and helping us with this.
How about if we put Scott Reesberg up first on the suspect board?
There's an inmate, John Koenig.
And what does he say?
He says, I was in protective custody with Scott Reesberg, who often talked of kidnapping LaFleur and having sex with her. He would talk about this woman every day, and he would tell me, I will kidnap this girl and have her real rough.
Real rough? All right.
Scott Reesberg was a convicted sex offender who served time in the Gory unit where Mary worked. He was out of prison at the time of Mary's murder, and according to another inmate, he had a dangerous obsession with her.
Okay, let's put Mary's husband up on the board. Let's start with the relationship. Bad marriage?
Larry's actually having an extramarital affair with a coworker. She and Larry get busted, and Mary lets Larry have it. Mary is actually having an extramarital affair as well with Charles Patrick Murphy, who works underneath her.
Patrick Murphy says, it ended about November 1990 when Larry confronted me.
It only ends around 6 months before all this happens. Larry and Mary caught each other having affairs, which led to some nasty confrontations. And if Larry thought that Mary was having another affair, whether it's true or not, that might have been Larry's motive for killing her.
Larry actually did a polygraph.
He is deceptive on the polygraph that deals with, do you know anything about Mary's disappearance? Did you have anything to do with her death? Do you know where she is now?
Okay. Polygraphs are not always accurate, and they are not admissible in court. But Larry's results make you wonder whether or not he was just nervous or was he hiding something.
After the body's discovered, he does not want to cooperate again.
Wouldn't you be calling every day if your wife is missing? Hey, what's going on?
But he's never been knocking on your door,
No,
calling?
never. He's never shown up.
Never called PD. We need to be thorough and treat this case like it's a fresh case. So moving forward, we need to try and talk to every single witness. We need to re-interrogate the suspects and hopefully uncover enough evidence to try and bring criminal charges against whoever killed Mary Jane. We also have to be careful to try and not let our suspects know that we're looking at this case again. We don't want them to prepare their responses, and we sure don't want them to head out of town. And who's the driving force in the family?
Bobby. She has been a real advocate for her sister, and she needs answers. She's not going to let this go.
Cases like these are really hard because you have a spouse who's the suspect, and you don't want to hurt the children or make it even harder on them.
Brandon?
We know that Mary's boys loved her dearly, but they also love their dad, and you don't want to put them in a difficult spot. So instead, we're going to meet with Mary's siblings, who have for the past 25 years been writing letters, calling the authorities, holding vigils, and doing everything that they could to keep this case in everybody's mind.
Nice to meet you, Miss Johnson. Miss Bobby. 25 years has been such a long time. You've been there for your sister. You've been her boys. That driving force in keeping this alive.
Why'd you do all that?
She was my sister, you know, and I felt I had to do something.
What was Mary like as a little girl?
Well, I raised her.
thing I remember is that my father would drive a pickup truck, and Mary would stand beside him on the shoulder. That's where she would ride. And, you know, he was not a slow driver, believe me. It was before seat belts or anything. And she never failed, not one time.
I miss the beat of your heart. You ended right where I start.
She was just a good person, and she loved playing with her kids. They were just her whole life.
So she goes missing in 91, and then y'all get the word that she was found in 93. What kind of effect did that have on y'all?
Devastating.
Yeah, it was devastating. And my mom, when she heard it, she just screamed. You know, it was just terrible, you know, for a family to have to go through this. You know, it just devastated us. I mean, what did she do to anyone to cause her to be murdered? You know, she was a nice person, a friendly person, and it just hurt. It hurt so bad. It's almost too much now to talk about it.
Bobby told me that my mom cried every day for 3 years until she got sick with cancer. If you ever heard of grieving yourself to death?
She really wanted an answer, but unfortunately she passed before we can give an answer.
Okay.
And 25 years has been hanging over your head. It's been heavy on your hearts. It's been heavy on our community's heart. We're going to do everything we possibly can for y'all to get y'all some answers.
Okay.
It was wonderful meeting y'all.
Thank you.
Miss Bobby, God bless you.
Stay strong
Okay.
for these ladies this week,
Okay.
okay?
Guys, let me show y'all. So there's 3 different locations we want to go to today.
We have 2 suspects in the murder of Mary Jane LaFleur, including her husband Larry, who claimed he last saw her alive riding in a stranger's vehicle speeding away from the mall.
We're going to go out to the West Hill Mall where Larry saw his wife's car parked. We're going to drive the route that Larry said that he took that night. And then we're going to end up where her skeletal remains were found in western Walker County.
We need to examine the details of Larry's story and the woods where Mary's remains were found. The very descriptive way he followed the car that night seems kind of unusual of a route. It's going to be really helpful for us to see it. Does it look a lot the same, just this part?
Yeah, it's still the same. The only thing that's changed is the names on the buildings.
Okay.
On July 19th, 1991, Mary parked her car in this spot right here. And then her car remained in this spot until Larry came and found it.
Witnesses reported seeing Mary in the mall around 8 p.m. and Larry around 9:45 p.m., but nothing more than that. And in 1991, there were no security cameras outside that mall. So almost everything else that we know about what happened next came from Larry.
He noticed that her personal belongings were actually underneath the driver's seat. So he concludes that Mary's not here, and he's starting to think Mary's having an affair on him.
Mary and Larry both worked at TDCJ, where it was common practice to not leave your purse away from you at any time, especially in your car. Mary would have never done that, and Larry knew it. So it's odd that Larry didn't immediately suspect foul play and want to call the police.
I'll show you the route that Larry was leaving to go back to his house. Larry gets in his truck and he gets on Financial Plaza here and comes to the light. It's at this location where a vehicle passes from his right to his left. And when the vehicle passes in front of his headlights, he sees Mary in the passenger seat ducked down.
Like this truck right now?
Yes, like this truck right now, and would later say that she may have been pushed down.
According to Larry, he immediately gave chase to the vehicle. The route described by Larry twisted and turned through the parking lot, passing a movie theater and a Walmart before quickly entering the expressway.
So the vehicle gets on the 45, and he cannot get caught up to the vehicle. And at this point, Larry returns to the mall.
I tell you what, if that would have been my husband in a car with some woman and I thought that he was messing around with that lady, I'd have blown my car up to find him. If Larry is making up a story, why go into all the detail about that crazy, circuitous mall route to get to 45?
Going all through the parking lot is kind of weird. It was an easier way to get into the service road.
Larry's story didn't end at the highway. Upset that he was being cheated on, Larry returned to the mall, parked his truck, and drove Mary's car home so that she would be stranded at the mall because she didn't have the keys to Larry's truck. Then later on, Larry got a ride from a friend to retrieve his truck. It all makes you wonder whether Larry's story is so convoluted it has to be true, or is he covering something up?
Yeah, I just don't think you would find a location like where we're going to just at random.
No.
You had to have known about this before.
It's time to examine the location where Mary's remains were found 18 months later. The woods about 10 miles from the mall. The police believe that this is where Mary's body was dumped, but she may have been killed elsewhere.
You remember this road back then, huh?
Yeah, it was not a whole lot different. The bones would have been off to our left between the highway and this logging road.
Scattered over, you said about 50 yards?
About 50 yards.
Dang, how'd y'all find anything? You found teeth and little bones?
And luckily, most of the teeth were still in the lower jaw and the upper jaw.
And all of her jewelry was right there close to?
Yes, which indicates to me that the body was left there decomposed.
And did it look like anybody tried to bury it or cover it up or anything like that?
No, it appeared to me that it was just laid on top of the ground.
The medical examiner was unable to determine Mary's cause of death because of the advanced decomposition and because of the scavenging of animals. But with her jewelry found nearby, it's clear that the motive was not robbery. One thing we do know is that nothing came back positive for any kind of blood trace evidence.
But the fact it's been in the woods a year and a half, the degradation from the humidity and the rain and
that takes care of
all
that.
The elements, that would have washed it away.
Okay. Unfortunately, there was no DNA or physical evidence or anything that connects either of our suspects to the scene where the body was recovered. But lack of physical evidence is pretty routine on a cold case. If we had physical evidence, they might not be cold.
Yes.
Yeah, is this John Koenig?
Yes, sir.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm all right, I guess.
This is Detective Scott Mitchell at Huntsville PD.
Yes.
We need to look deeper into the world of our two suspects, and examining Scott Reesberg is our next priority.
Do you remember a Scott Reesberg?
Yeah, I remember him.
John Koenig is an ex-con with the nickname of Yak. I'm not sure if that's because of the way he smells or because he constantly opens his mouth. But at one point, he was incarcerated with Reesberg, and he told the police that Reesberg was obsessed with Mary.
I didn't like his demeanor toward and his ideas toward women. I just didn't like it. He was infatuated with one of the women there on the unit. She was part of the staff.
LaFleur?
Yes, sir. Mary LaFleur. At certain times of the day, when he knew that she was going to be walking down the hallway, he would always look through the vent and try to get a look at her and whatnot.
Okay.
She wound up missing one time, and that's the first thing that came to my mind was him. I immediately told the warden there that he had this infatuation about her.
Would you ever send a letter to try and get, I guess, a reduced sentence on anything?
No, sir.
You always need to be skeptical when dealing with a jailhouse informant because they're always interested in making a deal to help themselves out. But according to the case file, Koenig wasn't offered any type of a deal to volunteer this information to the police. So we need to take a very close look at his prison mate, Scott Reesberg.
I do distinctly remember him saying if he could not have her, that he would kidnap her.
These are my notes, Scott, for when y'all go try and find Reesberg.
Okay.
I tried to highlight every time it's mentioned in your report, anything having to do with him. We've still got two suspects in the 1991 murder of Mary Jane LaFleur, and hopefully neither one of them have any idea yet that we're reinvestigating this case.
card? He's right there, the Corolla.
That's this one right here.
Reesberg is a convicted sex offender who was out of prison at the time of Mary's murder. He claimed to have an alibi, but he also allegedly threatened to kidnap Mary, so he's never been officially cleared out as a suspect.
You were an inmate at the Gore unit?
Gore unit.
What were you there for?
Aggravated sexual abuse.
Okay, is that why you're a registered sex offender?
Yes.
The actual person that went missing was an employee there at the Gore unit. Her name was Mary LaFleur. Do you remember?
I remember her.
You remember her? How do you remember her?
She was real pretty. When she'd go down the hall, everybody'd stop, including the guards.
Mm-hmm.
She was a looker.
Did you ever make any comments to any of the other inmates about her?
Well, I mean, we all made comments, but kind of like the Donald Trump thing, I guess.
Inmates at the time there gave mention of you were infatuated with Miss LaFleur.
No.
And then you would talk about her every day, and you told him, I will kidnap this girl and have her real rough.
Oh, God. I don't think so. That's just stupid.
Did they ask you where you were and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. They asked me all that. I know I was helping a buddy of mine work on his Corvette. When I got off work, I went to the auto parts store, because he had to work late, and picked up some kind of parts for the door.
Mm-hmm.
And then I met him over at his house, and we worked on the Corvette, and I went home.
Okay. Do you remember the friend that you went and saw?
John Davis.
You had nothing to do with her death?
No, I had nothing to do with nothing. Just trying to get on with my life.
All right. Well, Mr. Reesberg, appreciate you meeting with us.
Take care.
It seems like Reesberg has his story straight, but we do need to still track down his alibi witness.
This is Ken Fouch with the Huntsville, Texas Police Department.
In the meantime, we need to talk to all of Mary's co-workers from the Texas Department of Criminal Justice to see if they know anything about her relationship with Larry or his behavior at the time of her murder. But it's been 25 years. We just hope that they can remember something that might help the case.
Did you know her boys and know her husband?
I knew her husband, Larry. Didn't like him too much. He was kind of mean to Mary.
The first time we went out to eat, he was giving her hell about where she had been. Why did she go? Who all went? He won't let me do anything. I can't. I can't even go to the grocery store, and I can't do this, I can't do that, the way he treats me,
There were lots of rumors about how abusive her husband was.
There had always been rumor about abuse.
About a week before she disappeared, she came into work, and it looked like somebody had just grabbed hunks of her hair and just chopped it off. I asked her what was with the hair, and she says, "Oh, I cut it." And then she didn't want to talk about it.
I also remember she came to work with a black eye.
She had rolled her sleeve up, and she had bruises on her arms.
The jealousy, the controlling, everybody saw it. But Larry was a prominent person. He's rising through the ranks of TDCJ, so nobody says anything about it, and Mary doesn't disclose it to anybody. She keeps it hidden.
If she was missing since Friday evening, why would you wait until Monday and someone else had to tell her, "Hey, you got to call the police. You got to call it in that she's missing"? Why would somebody have to coach you to do that for your wife, your child, why would somebody have to do that?
He told me when he was doing his internship with homicide detectives, they told him that the best way to get rid of a body is to leave it out where the animals can tear it up.
She was a great person. I just hope that we find out what actually happened. She's such a beautiful woman. It was really sad to lose her.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
It shouldn't happen to anybody, but you just had to know her. It just stays on my mind.
It's okay.
Miss Spiller, I appreciate you coming down here.
You are welcome.
Like I said on the phone, we're going through the case involving Mary LaFleur.
Yes, sir.
Disappearance, and I understand that you were actually married to Larry.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
If anyone may have firsthand knowledge of Larry being physically abusive, it would be his ex-wife, Frida Spiller. Frida and Larry got married about a year after Mary's disappearance.
Did he ever talk about Mary Jane's disappearance?
No. He just acted like she didn't exist.
Okay. Living with him during that time, did you ever become suspicious of him?
No, he seemed pretty normal, but I think that, you know, you have some people that they know what they're supposed to do and they know how they're supposed to feel, but they don't really feel it. They can just act it. And to me, he's one of those people.
Was there any type of violence, domestic abuse, verbal threats?
No violence. One time he said something about, you know, I'll throw you away like you're trash.
Putting bad guys behind bars has no end. You know that, young quarterback.
I know that.
You don't take this wrong, but you're lucky you got a badge in your pocket the way you drive, you know?
We finally tracked down John Davis, who was the alibi for Scott Reesberg on the night Mary was murdered. John is no longer in touch with Scott Reesberg.
You can just sit up in the front seat right there.
Hopefully he can remember what they did that night.
He mentioned that he's headed to look for a part at a store to help work on the Corvette.
I remember working on a Corvette, but I don't remember him being over there.
I almost fell out of the back seat of that truck when he said that.
Is it possible he was there, or you just don't?
He wasn't there.
Davis tells us this isn't true. It didn't happen.
Do you specifically remember him asking to go along with his alibi?
I'm sure he probably would have asked me to do that.
All of a sudden, Reesberg's alibi is falling apart, and he's looking like a better suspect minute by minute.
What you got?
We just got done talking to John Davis. At first, he doesn't remember having Reesberg over, and then he just flat out says that Reesberg never came over and he lied about it.
Oh. This just got really interesting.
When the detectives come out there and talk to you, you said it was in front of your kids.
Yeah, they were all sitting around listening to the whole thing.
Our suspect, Scott Reesberg's friend, just contradicted his alibi. And now things are getting really interesting because Reesberg just called the PD. Now he's saying he wasn't with a friend that night, he was having an affair.
So when the detectives come talk to you at your house in front of your kids, you tell them that you were with John Davis. You were actually with Catherine.
Yes.
And y'all were probably at a local park or a hotel, or do you remember exactly?
No, we were at the park.
Y'all were at the park in Deer Park.
I didn't want to ruin my marriage. I really wanted to get that off my chest when y'all were here the other day.
Reesberg said he felt guilty for lying, but his credibility is now hurt.
What are the chances Catherine's going to remember Reesberg back in the day?
Well, she better remember screwing him. While we work on locating this Catherine lady, we need to keep digging for other information about our suspect, Larry LaFleur.
We're about to be there.
The windows are up. We know Ron Petrowski talked to Larry the morning Mary was reported missing.
Do you remember Mary?
Best supervisor I ever had.
He may have some insight into Larry's behavior and why Larry waited so long before he called the police.
He told me he had gone to the mall sometime Friday. He saw her sitting in a truck, and then they drove off. He followed them down 45 till somewhere around New Waverly.
To New Waverly.
He told me he was getting low on gas, and he turned around and he came back home.
Okay.
You remember the low on gas part?
I remember that. I remember that story just like it happened today.
Okay. Larry's original story was that he gave up the chase after about a mile, not that he went 15 miles and ran out of gas. This is a whole new story. You've been very, very helpful, Mr. Petrowski. Thank you.
I hope you guys solve this. I really do.
This is the type of inconsistency you were always looking for in a circumstantial case because the truth doesn't change. I think we just made the point of why you go back and talk to everybody all over again.
All right.
We've been able to locate Scott Reesberg's new alibi, Catherine.
There she is. Blue shirt.
Oh, yeah. Big Texas smile.
It's critical if we can determine that her story matches Reesberg's. And if not, Reesberg may very well be our killer.
Scott Reesberg mentioned you as someone he was having an affair with in the year 1991.
I was trying to think how long it's been since I've seen him. That would be about the right time.
Okay. He wouldn't be lying when he said y'all will get together.
No, we did meet more than once, several times. It's right there in Deer Park off of, I want to say San Augustine.
During the summer months there in 91.
I mean, I don't know, 6 months, a year? It was a while.
So it was not
It
just
was
like
an
a
ongoing thing, no.
one time here, one time here.
No.
It was quite a while during that time. Okay.
Catherine's story seems to match Reesberg. She doesn't remember the exact date, but she confirms that she was having an affair with Reesberg at that time.
Did he ever talk to you about any day, like needing a specific alibi?
No, he never said anything about wrongdoings.
Did you ever hear the name Mary LaFleur?
No.
Nothing. Thank you for your time.
All right, look what the cat drug in.
Hello.
Y'all are back fast. What does that mean?
She definitely had an affair with Reesberg during the summer of 91.
And she's credible?
Yes, very. She remembered Scott Reesberg. They had an affair. They would meet at the park there in Deer Park.
So you're all good with Reesberg and his old alibi is now a new alibi?
Yes.
You're good with it?
I'm good with it.
And you're good with it?
I am.
Great. After 25 years, Catherine might not be able to recall that exact night, but she is a better witness than we expected. And it makes sense that Reesberg might have initially lied to the police to keep his affair a secret.
I think we can cross him off of there. I don't believe he's a viable suspect at all.
I would agree with that.
The fact is, there's no evidence he ever had any contact with Mary after his release, and he came clean about his alibi all on his own. Scott Reesberg has a lot of issues, but he is not our killer. Scott Reesberg, everybody's good to eliminate.
Yes. Yes.
It feels great to clear a suspect, but we still have work to do if we're going to prove that Larry LaFleur killed Mary. We need to talk to her ex-lover, Pat Murphy, to see if he possibly knows anything else about this case.
Mary was really my best friend, even though she was my boss, we were best friends. So.
What did Mary share with you about her personal life?
Larry was a pretty temper-wise person, I guess.
What does that mean?
A lot of anger and jealousy and stuff like that all the time.
She just told me that he said, "You'll never leave me."
I'll never let you go.
He said, "I'll never let you go."
There you go.
I mean, I guess he had threatened her, and she told me some stuff like that. The day he found out, he had choked her that day.
She came back from lunch and told me about it. She actually had a scarf on.
He choked her during her lunch period.
He choked her during her lunch period. Whoa.
You remember what she said?
She just told me, said, Larry thinks we're doing this and that, and he's very angry, and I said, what I need to do. And she said, he's mad, and she said, that's why I got this scarf on, and she had more or something.
We've heard rumors about Larry's physical abuse, but Pat Murphy is the first witness we found who can say that Mary told him those bruises came from Larry.
Did you actually see
the injuries?
Yeah. She uncovered, she whizzing off, she didn't want everybody to know, I guess, to see it, but she showed me a couple more.
Think about that. That means that Larry had to have, over the lunch break, gotten so mad at his wife that he squeezed her throat so hard he left bruises that fast. That is a beautiful piece of evidence that Pat Murphy probably didn't want to tell 25 years ago, but he told it today.
Ready to rock and roll?
I am ready.
Let me get Larry's statements.
We've talked to almost everyone in our suspect Larry LaFleur's world and have tried to keep him unaware that we're looking into his wife's murder. Now it's time to talk to Larry. He spent his career in law enforcement and he knows his way around interrogations. But our hope is to catch him as off guard and unprepared as possible.
Wait a minute. He just pulled in. That's his car. That's Larry right there.
We know Larry just got off of work and headed to the grocery store. Greg and Ken are gonna intercept him there.
How about we go meet Mr. Larry?
Let's go say hello.
Hey, Larry, how you doing? Fine. Hey, I want to visit with you about your wife's disappearance.
Sure, I don't have a problem with
Okay. So, is there anything that we need to know about that night?
No, because as I remember it from that long ago, that's the way I remember it today.
Okay.
And you can remember the truth. How you can. Yes, we know.
He's calm.
Do you and your wife ever have any physical confrontation? Never?
She showed a coworker bruising on her neck.
I never laid my hands on Mary.
You ever remember Mary going to work with her hair all pulled out?
No.
But there were people that saw her with her hair all pulled out.
I don't believe that. Whoever told you that was telling a lie.
You know what's funny to me? Everybody in the state of Texas is lying except Larry.
Well, Larry's not lying.
This guy is just a flat line. He's not shaking.
None of that
He's
registered.
not dry mouth. He's not blinking.
Larry knows all the signs to look for. Inconsistent, tense, nervous, stuttering. He's a master of interrogation himself. He is calm and confident.
I didn't have anything to do with this. That's why I keep trying to tell you.
How sure are you?
I'm very sure. I'm 150, 200, ever how much sure I need to be, I am.
Ever how much sure I need to be.
I was exiting the mall parking lot. This car came across at my lights. And I noticed the guy was looking at me.
Oh, wow, you saw the guy?
You know what? I don't know if it was a guy or a lady, but whoever it was looking at me. Okay. But I'm looking past that person looking at her. I see.
Now it might be a lady.
You come up with this elaborate story. Now I'm supposed to believe that this guy is driving a car, holding her down, speeding through the parking lot, and Larry can't get a license plate number. He don't know what the guy looked like, don't even know if it's a male.
That's true.
He's been there for 3 hours. He's not sweating, he's not crying, he's not trembling. He doesn't even look tired.
You say you're a man of God.
Yes, sir.
As a fellow Christian and you,
It's the right thing to do.
Finish.
All right.
Ken and Greg spent 4.5 hours in the interview room with Larry LaFleur. Larry LaFleur is maybe the best that I've ever seen.
We're going to go down memory lane some 25 years ago. Larry LaFleur.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, Lord.
We have a lot of good evidence against Larry, but you always want more.
Tell me what you know.
And in a cold case, as frustrating and tedious as it might be, you have to talk to every single witness. We have one last name on our list, a co-worker of Mary's named Tony Garcia.
I went over with several of my friends to his house, and he didn't seem too upset.
What day you think y'all would have went over there?
It was like the next day, or maybe Sunday. But it was weird. He had cleaned up her car. You know, he had detailed it big time.
You saw that with your own eyes?
Oh, yeah, it was sitting outside, and the doors were open, and he was working on it. That was really the weirdest thing. If I'm mad at my wife for cheating on me, I sure wouldn't be cleaning her damn car.
Tony Garcia just became a star witness because Larry cleaning Mary's car the weekend she was murdered, it makes you wonder if he's trying to clean up something. This is the kind of sweet break in the case that you hope for.
Bam. Tony Garcia.
Sweet. All right, guys, look at that board. There are no more witnesses to talk to or details to review. And now we have enough circumstantial evidence to present to the DA. Start with his story that he gave that night. Why didn't you get a license plate, Larry? What do you mean you could see her maybe duck down, but you couldn't see the driver? You only went one exit down the road and you gave up and went home? That story never made any sense. Larry said it himself. The truth never changes.
You can remember the truth. How you can.
But Larry's story has changed. All of a sudden, he's going all the way to New Waverly.
He told me he was getting low on gas, and he turned around and he came back home.
You also found out he did wash the car the very next day.
Well, if I'm mad at my wife for cheating on me, I sure wouldn't be cleaning her damn car.
And then you find out from Pat Murphy, she comes back to work with bruises around her neck.
He choked her during her lunch period.
He choked her during her lunch period. Whoa.
She said, he's mad, and she said, that's why I got this scarf on, and she had more or something.
All the other little things that you found that we have up here on this board. Larry's strange story, his delay in calling the police.
Why would you wait until Monday and someone else had to tell her, Larry, you got to call the police. You got to call it in that she's missing.
The physical abuse, the bruises, the washing of Mary's car that weekend. It's all evidence that the district attorney needs to hear. What are you thinking, Scott?
We can present a case to him that he can agree with.
I think it warrants moving forward.
Y'all go tell him.
Let's do it. All right.
Walker County District Attorney David Weeks and his assistant Stephanie Stroud have agreed to listen to the case.
Good morning, Mr. Weeks. How you doing, sir?
This is the moment that the Huntsville Police Department and Mary's family have been waiting 25 years for. If the DA's office likes this case enough to take it to a grand jury for an indictment against Larry LaFleur, that's one step closer to a conviction and sweet justice for Mary Jane LaFleur.
I think it warrants going to the next level. What do y'all think?
Well, I think there's enough here to take to a grand jury at this point and let them see what they think of it.
I think that there's enough new information that it warrants presentation to a grand jury.
That make you happy, Ken?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Greatly appreciate your work. This has been on my mind since 1991.
Yeah.
This is that kind of case where when you're going to retire soon, like David is, you want to walk away proud that you did all you could. I can't think of a better case to work your heart out on than this one.
When the water's edges brushing lightly between.
Hello.
It's so wonderful to walk into that family meeting who's been waiting so long and to finally be able to give them good news.
Earlier this morning, we met with the district attorney's office here and we presented the case. I'm happy to tell you that they are going to take it to the grand jury for consideration. So that is great news. That is great news.
Yeah.
Ken will go into the grand jury where there's 12 citizens from Walker County and lay out the whole case to them. And those citizens will decide whether or not they think there's enough evidence there to indict Larry for the murder of y'all's sister. It's still a long process, but you're finally getting it moving.
Yeah.
I wish that your mother was here to hear this news.
Oh, yes, she'd definitely be happy today. She was looking forward to justice being done. And
I'm so grateful that there will be, you know, some justice for Mary. I'm so glad that I never gave up hope. After a long, long time, 25 years, that something is finally being done, thanks to you all.
It's so nice to know that tonight Mary's family can finally go to sleep, knowing that after 25 years, the road to justice has finally started. For more cold justice, go to oxygen.com.